Luxurious living is the goal and dream nowadays. But really, what makes for a comfortable luxury home? What are the joys of living in one? And how often can we find a luxurious home that really goes beyond expectations? Let's find out in our second feature for today, Botanika Nature Residences. With its iconic architecture, purposeful design, and incomparable landscaping, Botanika definitely offers a new way of luxe living. It's also impressive how Botanika was able to find the perfect balance between sustainable and luxurious living. Today, we're interviewing architect Dodo Casibang, Director for Design Planning and Economics for AECOM. Hi Dodo, thank you for joining us at Metro Home.
My pleasure.
You know, I noticed here in the property of Botanika, while walking around, that there's such a lush green landscape. What was your inspiration?
There are many inspirations for the landscape design, but I think the most evident one and the most talked about one is the idea that it's inspired by the forest. I think the jewel of the property is really its central open space and the way the buildings are designed so that the landscape comes through underneath in atriums. So I guess that really tells you all about the process that we went through, the ideas that came into the design process, and how it's evolved through that whole process.
Yeah. So expound more on Botanika as an oasis within a forest.
Right, okay. Botanika has 70% open space, and that's very rare in most condo developments, especially for a development that is medium rise, not very tall. So the ratio of open space to building space is quite high. And that allowed us to create very interesting or memorable moments in the landscape. We have a central green, we have some tree houses, we have a greenhouse, we have a tropical style pool that's multi-tiered. We also have play areas for the kids, and of course the atrium spaces, which are meant to be communal spaces that are very private and very intimate. So that to me is the success of the design.
You have 70%, was it, open space?
70%.
Then it must be like an exciting canvas for you to work on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I noticed also that, you know, the greenery goes all the way up to the top. Right? So is this supposed to like work hand in hand with everything else that you have around Botanika?
Yeah. A few weeks ago, they asked me, like, what is it that you think is very successful in the project? And the most important thing that came to my mind is the idea of how the architecture, or the notion that the architecture seamlessly integrates with the landscape. And it's very evident. You walk through the atrium, you don't get a sense that you're actually entering a building or exiting a building, right? So the landscape just flows through.
Yes, it's very connected. So Dodo, how does Botanika compare to living in an exclusive village environment?
I think Botanika has a lot to offer in terms of recreating that experience of living in a subdivision. For Botanika, it doesn't really take away the open space. You live in good size units. You have, as soon as you get down from your unit, go down to the ground, you're surrounded by lush greenery and extensive open space. So I think it's just like living in a subdivision plus more, because you have a very secure space. You have very little maintenance to do. You have your own swimming pool within your reach, which you might not have space for in a standard subdivision. So I think that's what it does.
Yeah, I think Botanika's really thought it out well.
Yeah.
To give everybody that luxurious feel. You know, the amenities are so complete, and really, it's like really walking in and you're like surrounded again by the greenery. That I really can't get over that, because, you know, when you're faced with all this development, right, it's all concrete after concrete blocks, right? But here you have concrete and an oasis put together, right? So you live harmoniously with the landscape.
Exactly.
How do you imagine the residents engaging with this landscape?
I think the best way to describe it to you would be to walk you through the space. No? If you notice, the drop-off, the main drop-off, is actually orthogonal in shape. it's deliberately shaped that way so that it's in stark contrast to what's happening beyond, which is very sinuous, very soft in terms of shapes. And it's also made to basically create a strong grand statement for the arrival. I know you've seen it at night. You have. It's really very strong, so it's meant to be that way. And what happens is we created this small portal of a door that's meant to compress the user, so that you go through this small door and the explosion of space happens as you come through. And I hope you're experiencing that.
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. What do you think is the importance of the landscape with the whole Botanika development?
I think we're not giving enough credit to landscape in general. To me, it's a very important facet of any development. In fact, it could make or break a project. I think and working with filigree, it's something that I myself as a designer appreciate. I do appreciate their commitment to developing a design that is cohesive, meaning it takes into account how people eventually use the space and how architecture and landscape need to be seamlessly woven together. I think when we started playing around with schemes, developing ideas for, we were involved in the master planning. We knew there were going to be 3 towers. We knew there was going to be so and so much space, but the shaping of the land and the shaping of the forms actually was a collaborative effort between the design architect and ourselves. So in this case, for filigree, it didn't work out that way. We kind of influenced the way the whole project was shaped. So I would say, without the landscape, there would be no Botanika. And I'm not bragging.
So Botanika earned a registration in the BERDE certification system. What does this signify?
I think most importantly, more than the energy savings and the water savings and everything, I think it signifies a strong commitment from filigree to really develop something that is truly sustainable. In a way, a challenge to other developers, because filigree is setting a standard that hopefully other developers can then emulate and try to achieve.
Well, I agree with you, because I think that integrating all this greenery with the development is such a welcoming, it's a welcoming and inviting position. I mean, you give it to the residents, right? That they enjoy more of nature instead of just being holed up, in the whole apartment. Yeah. How would you describe a person who lives in Botanika?
I think the person who would want to live in Botanika or already living in Botanika is somebody who values privacy and exclusivity, and I would say, not to sound elitist or anything, but somebody who has good taste, really mindful of the small details that come into any space. For the designer, that's something that we painstakingly think about in our process. So I would think a person who appreciates that deserves to be a resident of Botanika.
So Dodo, what is your definition of a luxurious property, and how does Botanika fit into this whole description?
I think luxury is not only defined by the richness of the materials that you put in, or the beautiful furniture. I think it's the mindful and tasteful crafting of spaces that allows people opportunities to truly engage with each other. I think Botanika as a development really does not take away the ability of people to be out in their garden. It really offers them much more than that. But I think the design of Botanika is something that is truly unique to the market. We're offering a space that is rich, that is lush, that is truly new. And it's really all about crafting people's experiences within your space. I think the true measure of luxury is when you come home let's say an early evening, you come home from work, you go to the pool, you lay on the lounge with the shimmering pool and shimmering water reflecting on the tree canopies, and you realize you're home. I think to me that's true luxury.
So Dora, thanks for joining us at Metro
Thank you.
Home.
My pleasure.
I'm going to go on my own personal tour now of Botanika so I can experience luxury living with the lush landscape.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
There's a new way to luxe living where you can be one with nature, thanks to Botanika Nature Residences. Step inside an upscale, low-density vertical community that assures exclusivity and serenity, things that are hard to come by these days. Move freely in its open spaces and indulge over exceptional finishes and the finest artistry. Breathe in the fresh air of the South and relax at the picturesque atrium garden. Or work, play, or just be as you. Take advantage of top-notch amenities that include an indoor and outdoor play area, a game room, and its tiered pools where you can rejuvenate after a busy day. If you mean business, Botanika also has spacious business centers where you can map your way to success. And there's a central garden where lush flora inspires that feeling of vibrance. Perfect for the family who values utmost privacy, opulence, and the tranquility that nature brings. Botanika Nature Residences lets you live the high life and so much more.